Okay, so what I'm gonna do today is I got tagged by my buddy Hiko Simon in the 51 things in your room thing, and maybe I'll do that at some point. Although just showing you things in my room, I don't know, I just didn't think it was all that interesting. So, sitting over in a corner, I have this huge binder, which you just saw me page through a little bit. I brought it with me to Japan in my luggage when I first came on jet, believe it or not. It's really heavy. It's 30 pages. Each page holds 8 DVDs, so it's 240 DVDs. It was like the initial amount of DVDs I brought with me to get me through what I thought would be a long dry spell of not being able to rent anything or understand Japanese television, etc. So I'm going to go through the binder and just point out some of my favorite movies and talk a little bit about them, and you'll soon discover what a film geek I am. By no means does this constitute, my entire collection or, all the movies that I think you should see, etc. But I think it's a good random sampling, and so here we go. All of these movies, of course, are available on DVD. Well, they should be, and all of them are for me or for Region 1, but wherever you are, you should be able to get them. Okay, kind of the two numbers that come before the letter A include 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle, who of course directed Trainspotting, one of my all-time favorite movies. Great horror movie. The follow-up, not so great. He didn't direct it though. I've heard his new movie, Slumdog Millionaire, is amazing and I really want to see it, but it'll be a while before it's out here in Japan. It's interesting that I'm going to start with this movie by Spike Lee, and I know you're not really going to be able to see that. It's called 25th Hour. It's a movie with Edward Norton, where he plays a criminal that's going to be put in prison, and he has 25 hours basically, until he has to report to go to prison. And what's he going to do? Is he going to go? Is he going to run? Etc. And it's just a really well written, great performance by Norton. And Spike Lee, gosh, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. One of my all-time favorite filmmakers from the 80s into the 90s, with She's Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing, School Days, a lot of his early films. And then, recently he's been making a bunch of good movies that he didn't necessarily write. He didn't write 25th Hour. And he did another movie called The Inside Man, about a bank heist with Denzel Washington and Jodie Foster, which he also didn't write, which I think was his biggest financial hit to date, and another great movie. He's a fantastic director. All the, boisterous rhetoric aside, I think he's an amazing American director. Going way, way back, I have a 2-disc set here for a movie called The Adventures of Robin Hood, which is one of the very first movies to really use Technicolor to its advantage, from, gosh, I want to say the early 30s, no, probably not the early 30s, probably the late 30s it came out. Errol Flynn as Robin Hood. Great film. Okay, let's go through. I'm just going to throw out some titles and maybe not talk about them as much. Airplane, classic comedy. I'll talk more about Cameron Crowe later, but this is Almost Famous, the Untitled Bootleg. I've got the 2-disc version of Amadeus. I'm not a huge fan of classical music. I appreciate it, and I admire the hell out of people that can play an instrument with that much virtuosity, but it's not something I listen to a lot, I will admit. But there's something about Amadeus, if it's ever on TV or I just stumble across it sometimes, I just have to watch. It's just mesmerizing. And Tom Hulce, who was in Animal House of all things, is just fascinating as Mozart. But of course the movie belongs to F. Murray Abraham as Salieri, and it's a soundtrack I do have, and I do like the soundtrack, and I do play it. you know, if you're a comic book fan, sometimes you like excessive, over-the-top things. So I don't think it's any huge surprise that I'm a big fan of Army of Darkness. This was from one of the director's cut box sets they did. You know, just so quotable from my early adulthood. And, you know, the Evil Dead movies are great, but Army of Darkness is by far my favorite. It's funny, that movie, you know, obviously came out in the early 90s, but a movie that came out really when I was almost too young to see it, came out in 1981. So, gosh, I was, what, 11 or so, is An American Werewolf in London. And American Werewolf in London, I think, is one of the first, well, maybe not the first, but one of the few movies that I remember growing up that really bridged the gap between comedy and horror. And, you know, a lot of you are probably fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Joss Whedon does this amazing job of, you know, the funny with the scary, etc. And American Werewolf in London is a movie just like that. My friend Chris in high school turned me on to it. John Landis directed it. He also did The Blues Brothers. And it's just so funny. And Frank Oz is in it, who does the voice of, you know, Yoda and some other Muppets. Anyway, it's just such a great movie, and it's got a great soundtrack. And yeah. Amelie is in here, 2-disc version, which I will admit I've never watched. I've seen the movie. I saw the movie at the theaters. Great French foreign film. But I haven't yet watched this DVD. Big Trouble in Little China, which, again, is kind of like Army of Darkness. Just way over the top and silly, but so much fun. I'll talk more about John Carpenter later, but him and Kurt Russell, you know, who teamed up to make the TV movie about Elvis, and then this movie, and of course The Thing, which is one of my all-time favorite scary movies. Their reimagining of The Thing. But Big Trouble, really fun. Got the 3-disc version here of Black Hawk Down, which is a Ridley Scott movie, and just another amazing performances. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to say about that. Blood Simple is a movie I will definitely recommend, because maybe some of you have not seen it. It's the first movie directed by Joel and Ethan Coen, the Coen brothers, and along with Raising Arizona, it's probably the two movies that I saw somewhat in tandem. I'm sure I didn't see Blood Simple on the big screen, as it was such a tiny movie when it came out. But I think I saw Raising Arizona first probably and thought, oh, these guys are pretty funny, but they're kind of wacky and alternative. And then you see Blood Simple, and I was just blown away. It's a kind of a noir-ish mystery crime thriller. And the really interesting thing about the DVD is the DVD commentary track is like complete and utter bullshit. Like, it's completely made up and has no bearing on reality. So it's really entertaining. Better Off Dead is a really funny early John Cusack movie from when he was still making comedies as a teenager. Just silliness. Okay, the last one I'll probably have time to talk about. We're only in the B's. I'm just going to have to make many of these, maybe. Bridge on the River Kwai. The 2-disc version of this. Probably one of the movies that really got me interested in Japan in a weird way. The Japanese actor in this movie is one of the few Japanese actors who's ever been nominated for an Academy Award. And it, you know, was the movie that I saw, of course, after I'd seen Star Wars as maybe an 8-year-old, where I was like, wait, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's Alec Guinness, an amazing movie from the 1950s, along with The Great Escape. The Great Escape and Bridge on the River Kwai, two of my dad's favorite movies, so movies that I would always watch with my father and have a special place in my heart. Okay, I guess I'm going to stop there because I'm at the time. So, movies, they're awesome. Watch them. Bye.